Bud, come here, dog.
There's Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Oops. All righty.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ides of Apocalypse.
This is Ides of February, a few days late. It's the 13th in February, usually
Right.
the 15th, but we started this a few years ago. I think this is our 49th
Yeah.
episode, and we took Ides and Apocalypse, two words that are given negative connotations. The Ides because of Shakespeare and Caesar's assassination, and Apocalypse
But didn't used to have one when
didn't.
we only had 10 months in the year before they changed it to the
Mhm.
Julian calendar. March was the beginning of the year, which is
There was a lot of good positive vibes with Ides of March,
Mhm.
and there's Ides of every month as part of the Roman calendar. So we, took Ides, and then Apocalypse is also another negative connotation when actually Apocalypse is actually a revelation, an unveiling of things that weren't known before. And we actually all go through an apocalypse every day
right.
if we look for it and if we're
Right.
trying to
It's
find
great
it.
revelations and revealings. They're coming fast and furious these days.
Some would say that the book of Revelation could have very well been called the book of Apocalypse.
Mhm.
And maybe then we would have said Revelation times would have been the bad word or something.
Right,
So-
right.
But today we're going to title this Kellogg, not the cereal, but I should have put Kellogg, not the cereal, ? This is a retired lieutenant general was been involved in the Army for several decades, and has got a really interesting past. And I came across him because a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, saw a story about a retired Army general in the Ukraine, of course, meeting with some of the, I don't know if he met with Zelensky or I'm not sure, he might have, but talking up, what the U.S. needs to do to help Ukraine with their struggle against the fascist empire.
Right. And remember, in past scopes, we've talked about the mythos of these generals, how they have this really unwarranted myth created around them that they're so great. Of course, with General Kellogg, he doesn't have the look. He doesn't sound like with General Schwarzkopf and maybe even Mattis.
Yeah, he fit the image
They
better,
could speak it.
even though they turn out to be real tools themselves.
Right.
But this guy, Keith Kellogg, we don't know. Can't find a lot about him, his personal life. You can't find out about his family much.
Which tells you in and of itself.
And he's a
lot
very
about
prominent
him.
figure when we go into a lot of his past and what he's been involved in. It also ties into we've done previous shows about the same characters keep showing up in big events throughout our country's history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, we don't know if he's related to the Kellogg fortune, but we'll get this out of the way real quick.
Yeah,
So this
because
is
the name's spelled
Keith
the
Kellogg.
same.
And then there's a founder of the Kellogg Empire. His middle name was Keith, so Keith Kellogg.
Well, his son was. I don't
okay.
think his name was.
But they looked
His eye. Look at his beady little eyes.
eyes and chin.
The nose, the mouth, the ears.
They look real similar, but hey, who knows?
Who knows? We can't find out.
But when you use Wikipedia in a way to try to discern, that's a
When Wikipedia doesn't have, when they have you, but they lack, some people, they'll go all into your parents, where they came from, their grandparents. And then some people like this guy, it might mention his parents' names. It mentions his kids' names.
I don't think it even mentions the parents' name. I couldn't find
No, it was Helen Costello.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you found that then.
Yeah.
I didn't find that.
Yeah, I found the parent, but that's it. It doesn't tell me anything about them.
He goes back to when he got out of college. He came out of the the ROTC in college and was an officer in the 82nd Airborne, I think, first. And so he was in Vietnam. This is the beginning of this career he touches on so many major events in the country's history, leading up in through the Trump administration and then going into Ukraine a few weeks ago. He's a big contributor and constant guest on all the variety of Fox shows, not just one.
They may have one CNN, and so I don't know.
He was a lieutenant, maybe got to, I can't remember, to captain during the Vietnam War. And then going forward in different operations, at some point he becomes the commander of the 101st Airborne. So he's in part, he deals with the 82nd and the 101st Airborne. He's also was an Army Ranger and in Special Forces. I mean, very busy dude, rising through the ranks. But as far as major operations, he's also one of the commanders in the operation that George H.W. Bush, when they took Manuel Noriega out in Panama. Oh, I can't remember that operation.
I didn't know that one.
But he was a major part of that operation. Remember, they had Noriega holed up and they were playing rock music outside.
Yeah.
That was kind of a farce too, probably. But then he's in the Iraq. I don't think he's associated with Afghanistan so much, but with the Iraq invasion with the coalition authority with is it Paul Bremer?
Paul Bremer.
He was he was the chief of operations, I guess, for that provisional authority, and was instrumental, him and Paul, in the disbandment of the Iraqi army. Of course, most of us know what happened with that it kind of, the country really fell apart.
They put him in control after Abu Ghraib.
Abu Ghraib, yeah. So just different instances, he's always there. And then if you fast forward past all of that, he gets, when Trump is running for president in 2016, he's part of Trump's national security foreign policy team, which is led by Jeff Sessions. Yeah. But if you remember these names, Walid Phares, George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and Joseph E. Smith, several of those guys are caught up in the Russiagate stuff, and we all know how that stuff turned out. But throughout all of these, Keith Kellogg just keeps rising through the ranks, and he's untouched by all these different things. And so then in the Trump administration, you guys remember, of course, General Flynn.
Right.
Because he's the national security advisor. Not for very long, though.
When they, media went on a tear about him, and then Trump threw him to the wolves. And then he was appointed interim until
he was the interim national security advisor, and he was up for the job between him and McMaster's. And of course, we all know McMaster's got that job, but then he doesn't leave the administration.
Right.
He then becomes the national security advisor for Mike Pence.
Right.
And we were talking before, one thing we're talking before about is, we think there's factions of people. There's not a,
like one deep
there's an
state.
Overall deep state, for the world, but there's factions
within even the deep state. Yeah.
And so we just were surmising that maybe, Flynn was part of one faction.
Right. And
he was part of another. He came out, on top. Their faction won that battle.
But we were also talking about how, Kellogg was then appointed to Mike Pence's national security advisor. And we were like, why does the vice president need a national security advisor when it's not his domain?
Yeah.
Although Lou and I think that a lot of these titles, like president, they don't really have the highest power that maybe the secretary.
Not necessarily.
Right.
And it probably depends on the person in that position.
In that faction.
And so, we thought that maybe Condoleezza Rice was running George W.
Right.
In a way, and even Roosevelt's.
Yeah,
Secretary
all the
of
way,
State. And even going back to Seward with Lincoln.
Right.
We
question about what power all these different positions have. Because if you look at Pete Buttigieg, whatever I call him,
the
something else, but I guess
transportation secretary.
Let's be real. He's not making decisions for the transportation department any more than Joe Biden is making decisions as the president of the United States. So we don't know.
It's just a feeling we get when we look at, and maybe even that's why Hillary was in as Secretary of State with Obama.
Maybe she had more.
But then in other times, maybe there's a strong figure. I think one of the stronger presidents, it might have been Nixon, but then Kissinger was kind of running him too.
Right. And you'll notice in all these different scandals, like say Watergate for Nixon, who didn't go down in flames? Well, Kissinger, Alexander Haig. And Alexander Haig was he Joint Chief of Staff, or was he?
Well, he became his Chief of Staff.
Yeah.
During I can't remember who his Chief of Staff was, and he went out as the Watergate stuff started heating up. Haig was the one that was brought in.
But I think you can tell how high up they are in the hierarchy by how untouched they are. Just like in the George Bush administration, Karl Rove never seemed to get any. He was never under the gun. I mean, the press hated him and they attacked him. But Scooter Libby went down for exposing Valerie Plame. Yeah. Different things. But if you look at who's untouched in an administration, and
Kellogg fits some of that, where he gets to,
he testified on January 6th about what happened on January 6th, but he's not under the gun.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say he's in the protected class.
The guy's curious, and then getting into the current events part of it with him and going to Ukraine, and we might get into Ukraine a bit.
That's what started you on this.
That's what got me started. And then also just the events of the last few weeks and with all the media stories. And part of our suggestion here is to stop chasing the laser lights like we're a bunch of stupid cats.
Right.
And they bombard us with some obnoxious stories.
They really did a number on us the last few weeks. Yeah.
And the Ukraine's a big ongoing piece of that, where this guy, Kellogg, he's another one of these people, they're not consistent. And part of this also, we want to keep reiterating in a lot of our streams, is we did one a year or so on nostalgia. Actually, we did one twice.
Right.
And you can have a false nostalgia, and people have a nostalgia for a false memory of a fair press. They have a false memory of how good
they wanted to go
were.
back to when the press actually investigated. Like, when was that? Was that in Vietnam, in the Gulf of Tonkin false flag that led us into war? Was it in the Iraq, the first war, when babies were being thrown out of incubators?
Well, now
when was that?
And now people are looking at a false past, that there were no train derailments with chemicals being spilled in places. There used to be acid rain to be afraid of.
Right.
We also talk over and over in our streams about nothing new under the sun.
You can even go back as far as like, who was Walter Durant, who won the Pulitzer for his coverage
for coverage in the Soviet
in genocide. You know, when people remembering back to a time when there was everything was normal and sane. When was that? And Lou and I say that it wasn't.
It's a fallen world, which it's okay because, you know, God has overcome that. We always try to end on a positive note with the Bible verse now with what's really going on, because remember, this is a battle not against flesh and blood.
Right. And we're supposed to be in this world, but not of it.
But it seems like over and over, a lot of people that we would, you know, kind of identify with or have some kind of, you know, similarities with outlooks. We know that the media has been lying to us for a long time. The awakening that's happened over the last few years, we know the media does it.
COVID really cemented it.
But every time a new story comes up,
everybody falls for it. Like,
jumps on it again.
The train derailment, you know, okay, I get it. That I'm not trying to say that something didn't happen and that it's not bad.
But it's being used for bad.
Yeah, they never let a good crisis go to waste. And you know, as far as how bad it is, they're making it seem like, oh, you know, this is the end of America and our water is going to be tainted. And and you know what, Lou and I are like, we're going to be okay.
And when you were shown the pictures of the big black cloud over the area, but just the same with the balloons, you're shown the same images over. There's
a purpose for the images.
There should be thousands of images from every conceivable angle because of everybody. We have a very advanced camera in our phone. Almost everybody does. Right. I mean, I see them on the road because they got them in their face while they're driving by me in my truck.
Right.
I mean, they're everywhere.
It's just like,
but you have this one angle photo of this cloud or of the balloon that's so far away you can't tell.
Right. And it keeps getting shown over and over. You know, back when they dropped the bomb in Japan, you know, on the two cities, you know, there was one photographer that was allowed.
One reporter for the New York Times that was allowed to
trying to publish pictures covering, you know, the pictures of the nuclear weapons being deployed. I think it was penalty of death.
Yeah, you can be executed.
So, you know, when the media is showing you one thing and they're playing on your emotions, like the pictures and the videos with the dead fish and the dead chickens, you know, you really got to be careful when they're heavily trying to play on your emotions, because that's how they psyop you. That's what when they first released all the COVID hysteria and people in China were dropping out in the streets.
Some of these people sent stuff to Owen, and one of them was.
Okay, wait a minute. So these are people that live
in the area
of
or
East Palestine.
People that he had a guy that works for Norfolk Southern that had some insights on what it could, you know, what type of accident it was. But some of these people are saying things like, and they ring true to me. I can't verify it myself, but they ring true to me. So you look at other people that are saying things to calm you down and say, quit, you know, being fearful of this stuff and acting. And then I saw people acting like they were being affected and they were 100 miles away and trying to vampire in on it. But these people, I swear, they have never been outside before. Oil does not sink. That's why they have to disturb the bottom to release the biofilm and anaerobic bacterial gases that are trapped in the sediment. You can easily look this up. Anyways, I thought this might be a helpful tidbit in spell breaking. Hey, BB, not sure if you've mentioned this on stream yet, but I keep seeing videos about oil in the water with this Ohio train thing. People dragging sticks and throwing rocks and disturbing chemicals. That's in quotes. Well, this is complete bullshit, of course, and totally natural and normal. The oil chemicals is a biofilm produced by bacteria on the bed of the water body. It's especially noticeable in water that doesn't move much, which at this year, rivers and creeks are at their absolutely lowest before the freshet, and swamps with stagnant water where it rises to the top and forms an oil slick.
Right.
And I even saw people saying that, you know, with the dead fish, that a lot of times in these northern climates, you have fish that freeze to death over
every
the winter.
year.
When the ice thaws, they come up, they float to the top.
Right.
And it happens all the time. And that goes with people, and we're going to get back to General Kellogg. You need to use your memory and try to remember correctly without this film over it that you know kind of glosses over things in the past. Because this Kellogg guy is not consistent. So getting back
Right,
with the
right.
Ukraine stuff, I got an article from just before.
No, you don't want to. Well, no.
No. Oh, I can't pull it up on this.
Oh, you can't?
Huh.
Yeah, just go to it.
Can I do that?
Just read it from there.
Yeah, because they can
Still see us.
Yeah. So there's an article I found. Yeah. This is from the UK Daily Mail. I think this is an article by Keith Kellogg in January of last year. This is about a month before the start of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. So Kellogg says Ukraine is Europe's problem, not ours. So why is Biden focused on a fight that's none of our business instead of tackling the true threat from China? Asked former National Security Advisor General Keith Kellogg. He says Afghanistan in 21 and Ukraine in 22 will stand out for their profound shock and the strategic importance of President Biden's failure in these two settings. Both are flashpoints in understanding what is fast coming together to be President Biden's America Last foreign policy, which these are all, slogans and stuff.
Right.
And national security, perhaps more than any other area, the impact of a single decision by an American president can be immediately felt and alter the very nature of a policy change, if not the broader geopolitical dynamics as the aftermath of the Afghanistan and Ukraine crises might bring. In such settings, a president's own judgment and instinct are brought to bear, and the quality of his advisors matter most. I'm sure he should have been there. It would have been okay. Biden and his advisors failed us in Afghanistan and appear to be heading in the same direction in Ukraine, as Putin's Russia continues to amass military forces for a possible invasion. Unfortunately, the current administration's view could not be more different from the one we had when President Trump was in the White House. Our America First plan did not mean America alone. It did mean we could embrace a worldview of what was good for America first, and then how our actions affected the rest of the world. America does not care about how our actions affect the rest of the world. No. President Trump had the perfect background to marshal our actions. So, bloviating about how great he was, saw that other nations took advantage of America's decline and that American families were the ones footing the bill. More about Trump. This is the precise opposite of what we are witnessing and experiencing today. Alongside a persistent awareness of the dangers of strategic overreach, the foreign policy of America First pursued. Oh, God, he's still doing it. When it comes to Ukraine, there is no clear pathway for success. It's certainly not through the direct use of American power. Ukraine is primarily a European issue
to solve. Remember that.
But the Europeans are failing. Economically, they've come to rely on Russia for 30% of their natural gas, 35%. Perhaps the data point most emblematic of Europe's failure is the fact that Germany did not allow the United Kingdom to use its airspace to fly lethal military aid to Ukraine. On the other hand, the U.S. has shipped over $2.5 billion in arms and aid to Ukraine since 2014. Remember that.
Remember that it really started in earnest under President Trump.
Well, the arms and stuff.
Yeah.
But then in 2014 is when we overthrew the government we didn't like and started, arming them and helping them in that's why it's been so tough to get in those battles.
Right.
So over the past 8 years, there's not been a resolution here. Now, this is critical here too. Over the past 8 years, there's not been a resolution over the Donbass issue in Ukraine. That's the two republics that originally started this whole thing. Wait.
Yeah.
Putin is now determining whether the Russian military will solve the issue. To Russia, the issue of Ukraine is deeper and more personal. To Russia, it is about their security. Lacking the buffer of the former Warsaw Pact states, Russia believes any further expansion of NATO to the east poses a threat to its security. Putin intends to stop that expansion, which becomes his red line with Ukraine. Right. Sure. Red line with Ukraine, NATO, and ultimately the United States. We are watching Putin's clear understanding of what Ukraine means to him politically and strategically, and his unwavering commitment to seize an opening to pursue his agenda. Unlike Biden, Putin is thinking strategically and has two immediate goals. He is spelling out what the lead up to this.
Right.
Resolve the Ukraine impasse to his advantage and fracture the NATO-European alliance with the United States. I don't think that his intention
I
is
don't
to
think it was to
fracture
fracture
NATO.
It was
He
just to keep him from creeping more east towards him.
Mhm. He can achieve the first goal unilaterally through invasion of the country, and the second through dragging out engagement with the United States over Ukraine and having those negotiations fail. And it turns out it's the opposite. The negotiations failed because the Brits and the U.S. told Ukraine to come out because they were going to have an agreement like 2-3 months into this war.
Right.
And then they told Ukraine to back out.
Right.
The current impasse was preventable with some diplomatic finesse.
Right.
Russia should have been told that Ukraine is a sovereign nation, but there is no intention for it to become a part of NATO due to governmental corruption. That was supposed to give Ukraine an out.
Right.
And he even says in its current state, Ukraine does not qualify for admission. Each country in NATO must agree to add a new member to the defensive alliance, and it takes 2/3 of the U.S. Senate for the United States to agree as well. This issue could have been taken off the table in the short term. So perhaps the most troubling aspect of Putin's efforts is how effectively he drags Biden deeper into Russia's priorities. No, it's just Biden's not the negotiator here.
Right.
It's Victoria Nuland, it's Blinken, it's
Valerie Jarrett,
Yeah.
Rice, Susan Rice.
So, and then he talks about China at the end. So that's a 4 weeks before the war starts.
Right.
So then I've got this other article. It's less than 60 days from the date of that article. And it's kind of dragging a little bit.
He does a total
He does a 180.
He's on board. So it's like somebody's gotten a hold of him. Ukraine victory changes the world as we know it. Is that it?
Is that it? Which one? That's 1 day ago. Let's see.
26 days ago. Oh, where'd it go?
He's Kellog.
So Ukraine is Europe's problem. So is it not that one? Ukraine war will culminate in spring.
He starts complaining within 60 days.
Yeah, you don't have to have the article. You can
I
just
don't have to
tell
have it, but there's another one too. He starts complaining that Biden's not doing enough, that, Ukraine is fighting they're exceptionally well. They can beat Russia. All we have to do is give them enough weapons.
Yeah, and he went from Ukraine is Europe's problem to
Mm-hmm.
why aren't we doing more?
Yeah, this is one from March 13th. This is like 6 weeks after that first article that he wrote in the UK Daily Mail. And he gave the reasons Putin was doing this, and they kind of make sense. And
go to that first paragraph. He goes to President Biden's weak and unreliable leadership abilities have led to a void in certain aspects of world affairs.
This is him on Levin on
Levin,
Fox News.
Yeah.
But he's complaining because Olaf Scholz and Macron, and he's in Germany, Macron in France, that they're taking the lead as far as the diplomatic parts, and that the Biden White House is not doing enough at the beginning. You'll notice.
I thought this was Europe's problem.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He said it was Europe's problem, and it has nothing to do with us.
Kellogg asked, why are they not talking to the United States? We're sitting on the back bench. Okay, well, it's Europe's problem. Shouldn't we be sitting on the back bench?
And in Parliament, they call him a backbencher, somebody that's kind of.
So it makes you wonder who got a hold of him.
Yeah,
the military-industrial complex.
But everything he says once the war starts is all about we should be doing more. We should have given him all the weapons they needed right at the beginning, and instead of drawing this out.
And he's saying that we're concerned about escalation. Look, the guy who's escalated is Vladimir Putin. Yeah. That's the one who started the war. No, America and NATO.
But just 6 weeks later, he's arguing against himself, and nobody remembers. And I didn't know about this guy until I heard about.
Right.
Because I've been kind of looking at Ukraine lately and just wondering what the heck's going on.
Right. So he sure flip-flopped really, really quick.
Yeah. It took and I couldn't find anything sooner. It might have been sooner.
So that's Ukraine's going strong. And then we have, what is it that we have? Okay. We find out that Seymour Hersh is saying that America blew up Nord Stream 2. And then what do you have? Hot air balloons.
Yeah.
Hot air balloons. And everybody's freaking out because Biden didn't do anything. Biden said we couldn't shoot that balloon down because it's a safety or national security. And then after that, after that first week, then there's more balloons, and he's shooting down every one of those
right away.
Even though they're supposedly, hobby balloons or private.
At first, they didn't know what they were. They said unknown propulsion and all this crap.
Right.
You know, the one over Alaska.
Right.
And I think, and it was a threat. They out of an abundance of caution, they shot them down because they were a threat to civil aviation.
Right.
But if this one that went all the way from Montana across the country and out the coast of South Carolina, how many air routes did it cross? So there was no abundance of caution. And I love how they always use that term, abundance of caution. And I think Trudeau used it too with the one that they did over here.
And I think the bigger story though with the hot air balloons and being a spy satellite is that satellites are hot air balloons.
Yeah. Or attached to balloons. They're not. And
they're not in outer space.
But if everybody has the satellites, why do you need the balloon? And just it's just a
and who's
farce.
The biggest buyer of helium?
NASA about like 90% of it or something like that. So
right. So you have the Nord Stream 2, like we committed an act of war and then bam, here come the balloons and the train derailment. And nobody's talking about, well, there are people talking about it, but it's not dominant. It's being diluted by all these other stories. Epstein release, with the JP Morgan executive talking about, Snow White. I did notice a reporter when she was talking about the Epstein and that JP Morgan executive that they had code names, and she said for the women. I'm like, no, little girls aren't women.
Reminds me of that line from Raising Arizona, and he said, "I told you not to use my name." And he goes, "I was using your code name." And then he's like, "You all hear that? We're using code names." Man, we need to relax and and look at it as a comedy. I've said it before. When I don't watch news, but when I'm on the road, sometimes at a restaurant, you'll hear it. I'll see like closed caption Fox or MSNBC or something on the TV, and I just laugh at it. It's some of it is almost like well-written comedy, but it's all almost irony, almost every bit of it. And you got to look at it that way, because I know there's people that make a living on satire, and some of them are going to have to, think faster and imagine faster.
Right, because the satire is writing itself.
The satire, they can't keep, stay ahead of
it's coming so fast and furious too. All these stories. And so we just want people to start thinking, when you start seeing something and it's playing on your fears and your emotions, and you see something go, because when I saw the dead fish and the dead chickens, I'm like, oh my God. But then you got to think,
but then is it the
making
same?
You go, oh my God.
Yeah. That's what they want. That's what
the energy, because they feed off the energy of.
And I've had this up on previous streams, but it's just how some people would see history. History is the study and the documentation of the past. Events before the invention of writing systems are considered prehistory. History, and that's in quotes, is an umbrella term comprising past events as well as the memory, discovery, collection, organization, presentation, and this is important, and interpretation of these events.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about with nostalgia. We need to maybe take off the rose-colored glasses and look back. There were worse chemical fears back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Remember the argon thing with the radon?
Radon, yeah.
Homes were all infested with radon. You had to have
radon, asbestos.
Oh man, we got comments and I forgot to look over there.
Leonard was.
Oh, there's Leonard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that, Kathy. JD Vance
Stream.
dragging the stream, showed rainbow film slick on it. So much drama. Oh, you responded to that.
He must be getting dollars.
I was actually going to put the.
Kathy says he must be getting dollars, and that's what I'm thinking with this General Kellogg is. It's kind of like Fauci, that Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, said you give Fauci, some money, and he'll get on camera and say anything you want him to say. I figured that's kind of General Kellogg too. But we've got to stop. We've got to stop following.
And I put the link in case she wants to join. Yeah, because Kathy's from Ohio.
Oh yeah, that's right. Kathy. I don't know if you're still there, but if you want to get on,
I put the.
There's not. It's not. I don't see her watching now, but I don't know. This might be lagging.
Yeah. But then I was going to show a couple of other, or maybe just one other. what was it? Good old Keith Kellogg in an interview.
Yeah.
This is in late 21. What's your takeaway from the American COVID response? Ultimately, we were successful. Within 1 year, we developed not one.
Hold on. When he says ultimately
Yeah.
there's a lot
Well,
of
they were successful.
Well, there's a lot of talk that the Defense Department is one that ran the whole.
Oh yeah. Well, especially the logistics of it.
Yeah.
But no other way, we not one but 3 vaccines. No other nation in the world can claim that. Vaccine development was a historic medical breakthrough created by a Trump initiative, Operation Warp Speed. During COVID, we were constantly battling a negative and skeptical press. Virtually no one believed we could get a vaccine done in record time. Well, I still don't believe you got a vaccine.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because I don't think it's a vaccine.
And also, as far as this Kellogg, I don't think I had stressed enough on this. This person is he created Kellogg, and then his 2 sons, John Harvey and Will Keith Kellogg, went on to do the cereal. What I was going to say about the son, what are the odds? I mean, his name is the son's name, not this guy, but his son's name is Keith Kellogg.
Yeah.
And then General Keith Kellogg, and there's no relation. I suppose that could be, but they did set up a Kellogg Foundation, kind of like the Carnegie. And,
oh yeah. And you know how those go. Non-governmental organizations
Mm-hmm.
are, in some places they're running the show.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess that's most of what we
had.
That's
we want people, they got us with balloons and train derailments, these last few weeks. And while, be smart about these things. I don't doubt that some disaster happened, but it's not what they're saying it is.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. You're going to be able to get clean water and clean air.
I know some people saw the Jack Posobiec sharing of the long shot view of the train coming up these tracks that look like
third world,
look like something you would see on an adventure TV show where there's going to be a train going off the rails and stuff. And then some people did some digging on that and showed that it was deceptive. They used it said it's not, the tracks aren't in the best shape, but by using a long lens and slowing it or speeding it up and manipulating the recording of it, made it look much worse than it is.
Right.
And it's like a short spur that a company bought, and they're actually working on upgrading these tracks. And so people were like, this isn't third world, this is Ohio.
Right.
And it wasn't even a majorly used line of track, but a company bought it, I guess, 8 years ago, and they got some funds in 2020 or so to help upgrade and fix the tracks. So there's
the story about the Michigan or Detroit or somewhere, there was another train derailment it was carrying hazardous chemicals, and everybody was sharing the stories about that. But what they left off was that the chemicals weren't leaking from those trains. So it's like you're trying to create this more fear.
And in Ohio and in Detroit, there were no injuries. Nobody was killed. And so everybody, let's calm down and maybe.
And the stories we've heard from some people that are close there, they're like, my chickens are fine. I think it's fine. And they turn on the TV and it's like being reported that this is like ground zero 9/11. And they said it's very surreal. So I don't know what's going on, but I just think it's probably not as bad as they're reporting.
No, it never is. And I mean, really,
it never is. It never is.
And then, but the people, I think somebody called them empathy vampires, is that, people were starting to say they have symptoms and they're hundreds of miles away. And see, that's like they want themselves in the story. They're so. But
then a lot of times that can happen just naturally, where you start reading the Mayo Clinic's book and you're like, oh my God, I have this, and it kind of spread. That's
psychosomatically make yourself
COVID
sick.
A lot. A lot of people made themselves sick, and so don't make yourself sick. Turn off the TV, go out and start planning right now is the time to be planning your garden. So there's shortages of eggs, and you don't know where your fruit and vegetables are coming from. So, start planting your own.
Yeah. And do stuff that's under your control. And then with this, when you're looking at these screens, just remember, I got into a back and forth with Carpe Dunctum, and he did a little, a takedown of me, he's so witty with comebacks. And I was asking a legitimate question. How do you know this?
What's going on there? If it's
Because
bad.
you can only, in some ways you can only trust what the physical that you're in contact with.
Right.
And then if there are the voices of people saying that it's not that bad, those voices are being drowned out.
Right.
So that's
and
when
mocked.
you use
and
discernment.
while we're saying it, I'm not saying that it might not be,
And that's
be
the
bad
thing, when I read those
but
things, if I read something and I put on Twitter, hey, it's not that bad, there's people get angry with you.
They do.
That.
It's almost like they want it to be that bad. So you're seeing all these TikToks and these videos that are playing on your emotions and drumming up that fear and all your empathy for whatever might be going on. But just consider that it might not be as bad as they're trying to portray.
And hey, don't get mad if it comes out that it isn't that bad.
And
that's good news.
And Pete Buttigieg, I don't like him. I really don't think he should be in that role. But when I kind of felt sorry for him the other night when he was saying, there's
over 1,000 a year or something.
He's right.
He's right.
And because there's this left-right divide and everything that you say has got to be bad and everything, you have to be on the opposite side of whatever he's saying. But what he said was true.
Yeah. And but if it turns, when you find out or you get verified somehow that it's not that bad, well, then that's good news. Don't be angry about that.
Yeah, don't be angry. Yeah.
And then just think about these stories about different politicians and people that no matter what side that you claim to be on, the one that you don't like, you're going to share the worst picture you can find of that person.
Right.
And the one that you like, you're going to try to find the best picture of that person you can. And so everybody does that. Everybody looks. I saw a post, and it was about Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
Something about her retirement, and she forgot she'd already said she was retiring, and she said it again or something. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the picture of her was hideous.
Yeah, it was.
But I know that if you could find another picture that I don't think she's an attractive woman, but she wouldn't be that ugly. And then, they've done it to Nancy Pelosi. And
although I think with Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, I think these demons,
it does catch them at moments, and I think it makes them look.
And you could see,
very
wow,
hideous.
they look like the demons that I think they are. But we will. I mean, I've done it.
But they've done it to Trump. I mean, and if I'm only talking about, Nancy Pelosi and Feinstein, people are going to be going, "Oh, you must be blue pilled," and I'm just like, no, that's not a good argument. Yeah. So if you say this, then you must be a Trump hater. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of getting more and more indifferent to Trump. So.
Yeah, I'm just kind of becoming indifferent to the left-right divide, the division, because the division is what controls us. So stop dividing. I guess that's another good piece of advice. Stop dividing. Stop falling for, when the laser shoots over here, look over here, look over here. Maybe just go outside and ground yourself in nature. Maybe not look at it
at all.
Yeah.
Because I come home on the weekend, and the first thing I do is I have a water fountain with pond out in front of my house, and I turn that on, and then I maybe when it's cool, I get a fire going, and I hang out, and I'll smoke a cigar, and I'll hang outside. I'll have my dog with me, and lately here, my youngest son and I, we start to play chess, and doing
real thing. That's real.
I took my kids to go get breakfast, and just didn't look at the phone for a while, and
that's probably the best thing that you can do is unplug from this matrix. Like, I can't confirm or deny what's going on out in Ohio. I just know that I'm really being played and being pulled to look over here.
And actually, I delivered in Ohio, Kenton, Ohio, in the beginning of the week, actually on Monday, and I didn't even, I was still probably 2 hours away from that area of Ohio. Ohio is a big state. People don't realize how big this country is. But it was a beautiful day and no problems,
Yeah.
I didn't have any chemicals leaching around my truck.
Well,
downstream.
Truthfully, if everybody was unplugged at the same time from the news, from social media, just, I guess even from the internet, nothing's so bad. It's actually pretty good in America.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah.
So
we have it too good. That's why we have all this time
to think
fret about.
We got to make up stuff to struggle.
And like we always begin about talking about Ides and apocalypse being actually positive things. We want to continue to end with, where'd you go? This guy right here.
Yeah.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that's the crux of it right there. And
Right.
we're wrestling with these, not against flesh and blood, but
Right.
it's, I mean,
And if the
that's-
battle's not against flesh and blood, that's a good thing because you can tap into the spiritual side of yourself any second of any day.
Mhm.
And half the battle is not giving them your negative energy, not putting that energy out there.
Mhm.
So life is good.
Yeah.
Unplug. Stay positive.
But
And
thanks,
we'll come
guys.
back
And we'll be
next
coming up
time.
on March, Ides of March, where it all began 5 years ago, I guess.
Yeah,
5 years
yeah.
ago. Wow. Hope to have some good stuff for you then.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
If you like this, please share.